Hi guys, it's Sophie. So today I'm going to be doing my non-fiction November TBR. I'm going to go through the books I've chosen for each of the 4 challenges first, and then the other ones I'm going to be reading throughout the month of November. I probably will read some fiction in November as well, but I'm not going to do a separate TBR for that. I'm just going to pick up whatever I fancy in November, and then whatever I have left for my December TBR, if that makes sense. But I'm definitely going to go to all of my remaining non-fiction in November. So the first one I have is my pick for Substance. And this one is Cracked, Why Psychiatry is Doing More Harm Than Good by Davies. I picked this one because I disagree with it, and you guys know that I quite like to do that, to pick books that I think I'm going to vehemently dislike and see how other people might feel that way. I expect that this is going to focus on the pharmaceutical industry, which is why I've chosen this one for Substance. I'll be interested to see whether or not this encompasses therapy as well as just the drug industry, but we'll see. It says on the back, if in the world of psychiatry the DSM is holy scripture, Cracked is set to become a heretical text. So we'll see what I think to that one. I hope I'm gonna hate it. And the next one I have is my pick for Home, and I chose The Red Parts by Maggie Nelson. This book is about the murder of, I think it's Maggie Nelson's aunt. The crime was unsolved for a really long time. It was reopened in 2004 when new evidence came in, and Maggie Nelson was able to attend the trial and sort of work her way through her aunt's murder. So I've chosen this one because I think with Home it's kind of the sense of like being close to home. So it's sort of true crime but from a really personal angle. I actually had a great aunt who was murdered, and it sent like ripples through our whole family, so whilst it's not quite as close family as The Red Parts, I feel as though that could be quite interesting just to see the parallels between how that affected my family and how this affected her family. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to this one. And the next one I have is my pick for Love. It's a bit of a sad one, I'm afraid, but it is The Year of Magical Thinking, which is just white on my little thing. I don't know if you can see it, but it does actually have letters on it, by Joan Didion. And this is a book about the death of Joan Didion's husband. She feels like she's a very unlucky lady from the books I've read of hers so far, but I think grief is a really important part of love. And I read a quote the other day, I can't remember who it was by, that was talking about how, I think I read it, maybe I heard it somewhere, but about how grief is like an echo of love, that grief is something that whilst it's hard to work your way through, it is something that is a mirror of the love that you felt for that person, and it shouldn't be seen as just a negative thing. I can't remember for the life of me where I found that from, but yeah, so that's kind of what prompted me to choose this one for that. I've wanted to read it for a little bit of time now. Yeah, so we'll see what I think. Blue Nights was really affecting, and that was about her daughter, so yeah, we'll see how we go. And the last challenge is Scholarship. For this one I've chosen Ethics in the Real World by Peter Singer. This one I think is going to be really good fun. It is 82 tiny essays on questions. So yeah, they're literally like a couple pages long. So for example, there's one here that's literally 2 pages long called Dying in Court, that's about whether or not you should be allowed to determine if you want your life to end, if you want to take away your care. Another one a couple pages long about how we should treat doctors who accidentally kill people as part of their job. Yeah, it's on all kinds of stuff. So it's on, let's have a look. So we've got the big questions, animals, the sanctity of life, bioethics and public health, sex and gender, doing good, happiness, politics, global governance, science and technology, living, playing and working. So I think it should be really fun. It's just bite-sized stuff. But I know that Peter Singer is like a really well-known philosopher, like modern philosopher, and I think this just seems really approachable, and if I'm interested in the arguments and the way that he thinks, I might pick up one of his longer form things, but just because they're so bite-sized, I think this is going to be great for non-fiction November, just to pick up and dive into lots of different topics. And then I have a few others I will be reading in November, but they aren't for any particular challenge. The first one is one I'm about halfway through, and that is The Muslims Are Coming by Arun Kundnani. As you see, I'm getting there. But yeah, this one is about sort of Islamophobia, about the war on terror, about terrorism, about I guess to some extent kind of the idea of global Islam, the issues within Islam, the different ways in which people can interpret the violence. Yeah, it's really interesting. talking a little bit about extremism as well and what that classes as, what right do states have to class things as extreme, where are the lines of morality in saying this is unacceptable, you can't do this, versus saying you can say whatever you like. It's very complicated. There's a lot there, but it's a really interesting read. Yeah, I'm only on page like 100 at the moment, but I actually don't think, yeah, it's like 290 pages, it's quite a lot of its notes. So I'm enjoying it. It's very different, and it does challenge quite a lot of what you assume as well. And I've read a few things on extremism over the last year, and this is the one that's challenged my assumptions, if that makes sense. Not necessarily changed my mind, but just made me think about why I hold certain views that I do. So yeah, there's this one. And the next one I have is A First-Rate Madness by Nassir, Ghaemi. And this book is talking about the links between successful leadership and mental illness, and how a lot of those leaders who do very well in crisis situations have struggled with mental health issues within their lives, and that the skills they gain through dealing with those kind of upsets mean that they are really good at dealing with really shitty situations in other parts of their life. It's also talking about whether or not mental illness has, I guess, any positive side effects. Never read anything like this before. I think it should be really interesting, and I guess to see the ways in which mental illness can have consequences that aren't just negative, especially kind of personality disorders and mood disorders, because they are the ones they're talking about most often, because often those are things that affect people for their whole lives. It's not something that you can necessarily solve completely. So yeah, it's just kind of interesting to think about any positives that might come out as well. And yeah, as I say, it's something I don't know anything about. It's a nice American one, so it's all floppy. So I think it's going to be one that I can kind of like set down somewhere. I might even be able to do like knitting with it, we'll see. Floppies are good, floppy paperbacks. They're just, it's just really satisfying. Get on it, there you go. And the next one I have is a tiny little one that I've had my eye on for ages, and this one is Tell Me How It Ends by Valeria Luiselli. This is written by a woman who working with undocumented children who've arrived in the US, mostly from Mexico and Central America, and this is sort of a relatively short essay that is trying to determine what is that experience like, and what are the fate of these children that arrive in the US, what kind of happens, and talking on, I guess, a more personal level about that immigration experience. Yeah, as I say, I've had it on my list for a long time, and I saw it and thought, do you know what, I'm not going to be able to just randomly pick non-fiction up next year, so just go for it, just read it this year. So I think it's going to be good. And then the very last one I have to show you is Strangers Drowning by Larissa, MacFarquhar. This is another one on ethics. This is talking about altruism, kind of extreme altruism. So the thing on the back, which I really like, says, how far would you go for others and how far should you go? Would you donate your kidney, adopt 20 children, live in a leprosy colony? Told with beauty and compassion, this is the story of people who do. The tough courage and extraordinary, rather unsettling goodness. So it's about people who are extremely altruistic, and whether that is a positive or a negative thing. Yeah, I think it should be really interesting. I've had this one on my list for a long time. So I'm actually going to manage to slightly set it on fire. I don't know if you can see that. I burnt a candle right next to it and it started smoking. So yeah, I think it's probably time to get to this one, and I think it should be really interesting. I've really been liking reading about ethics this year. One of the things that I think for my non-fiction has been, I don't know, most valuable for me, because it's something that I think lots of people have their own ethical code but don't necessarily think about what are the underlying key values that have led them to make the decisions at the end that they have, and it's been really interesting kind of working that back. So yeah, I have some things I'm really looking forward to. This is kind of my last big hurrah for non-fiction before next year, because next year isn't going to include a lot of non-fiction. There will be some, but it's not going to be the same kind of volumes I normally read. So yeah, it's like I kind of have mixed feelings. I'm very excited for November, and I'm also a little bit sad that I'm going to be putting non-fiction to one side for a period of time. But yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed hearing me ramble for a bit and you've seen some stuff you're interested in. Let me know in the comments down below if you're going to be participating, any books you might have to meet those challenges. That'd be great too. I'll chat to you guys soon. Bye!